Thank you.
Last night.
You what? Nice.
And I was like, oh, what do you think else tomorrow?
I love the color.
Yeah, that's really good. I didn't even want to shit enough to.
Oh, sure.
And iPhone and MacBook. I got a case from Target, a sweat case from Target the day I got my iPad.
Yeah.
And like I hadn't dropped it, had barely even touched my iPad. 3 days later, it like cracked on the side.
Are you serious?
They all have like warranties, but like the one I got like isn't there because.
I was gonna say spec is usually pretty good.
Yeah, and like the people at Target were like, what you pay for is what you get out of it. So like I got like a nice one because I was like, I'm gonna need this for a good while.
I always buy spec online because they're so much cheaper.
Are they?
Yeah.
I didn't even think.
Yeah.
I was kind of more like, I don't want to break it in these like.
I get you. That was a lot of information last night. How'd you guys do processing that?
When did she say we like find out around this? She said it started
Content
the 28th.
areas. Yeah, content areas we usually find out by the end of February.
Okay. I was like trying to like weigh my like options. Like, do I tell people I just generally would have to just find another person?
That's it's the biggest struggle that we have right now with this whole issue. You know, and if you do plan to live on campus that one semester, you don't have to buy a meal plan, but it's at Hampton Hall. And, you know, those are kind of, it's an okay call, right? But it's not exactly fun. Yeah. But to be honest with you, you rarely do that because you're out students in the time. So I don't know what that would cost in relationship to a lease or rent or anything like that. I wish we had a few more. If we were a bigger community, you'd have places that would lease you for 6 months. And maybe some of them will, but
Good morning.
End of February is like super far out.
Right.
It's so good to see.
When do your leases usually come up for renewal?
Well, the girl that we're gonna work with is in the board, but she already lived in it.
Mm-hmm.
So she's already signed it, and then the other two are gonna. And I just should have been like, I don't have the money to do it. And they believe me.
Are you wanting to be around here? You're gonna try and get Brookings. Did you have your dad contact?
Yeah. My dad's like one of my best friends is that track coaches. But she's on my site. There's only one.
there's only been one 2% or a cloud that is the one who usually will do it.
Do they just have to say like yes?
Exactly.
Okay. And then my other question is that my brother is he does like so and then Schmidt and the other ones that to like history. Well, I really talked to them. Like I know my dad. Last year we had his, he had geography studies, which we were teaching us all the students and government and like the policing type. Right. And she really both. Oh, right. Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, there's always that.
She got all my dad's computers. So I don't know if they're like different.
Yeah, no. She can arrange anything as long as the people on the other end of it. Yeah, especially if it's what you do right now, you plan on taking practice for this.
But
I'm so frustrated with it. I think the practice is a good thing, but like when I graduated from college, we didn't have to take practice for the content. We didn't have to take practice for anything else. Right. When I came out, I have all the history, psych and social, and I have all the Englishes just because of my degree in English.
That's why my dad was so confused when I like, I was like,
and when you look at everything, I mean, my list of certifications is a page and a half long, just because of my master and everything beyond that. So like, you guys have to pay a ton of money just to teach a course. You're qualified to teach because of the course that you teach. So,
I mean, in a sense, it's like, no, I look at it not terrible. Like my dad taught math for 20 years and then passed the grad, like had a degree in math and all the social studies, and now when I was a sophomore, so I thought you meant 4 years ago he started teaching. So
right.
Like, if you get like the burnout rate is kind of high for teachers, like it would makes it like more flexible. So like it's paying for it, I guess isn't a bad thing. But like, I wish we didn't have.
And the downside of that is I'm certified to teach junior high math. I should not be teaching math at any level. Right? But because of the correct courses I had to take when I was going through here, it's right at that time. So.
Oh, well. All right, let's get started today so that we can get you out of here. You're going to notice in the top right-hand corner, I am utilizing Zoom, so we're recording this class. And it's not something we had talked about yet, but the next time that this kind of stuff happens, we might just do a Zoom class where you all would join in via Zoom. Now, those people who aren't here, and for you guys as well, and keep this in mind, because I know some of you guys travel, some of you live on campus, all those things are there. If this kind of thing happens again, this is going to record everything, so you'd still be able to watch the class. Those of you who are in Hale's class, he does the same thing. I don't think he uses Zoom just yet, but so all of those classes and stuff are recorded, okay? So don't freak out, like, you know, Rebecca, she's up in Clear Lake, and she's not going to drive on these roads to come to an 8 o'clock class. That's the only thing she has today. That's just silly, right? So keep that in mind. How many of you noticed that you read this wrong? Yeah, I do it all the time. And your kids will do that too, and what we do is our brain, now that we know so much more about the brain, our brain completes things for us. It makes them right. It's why your English teacher might have told you at some point in your lifetime to read your essays backwards. Because if you read them the right way, your brain will fill in what you thought you already had. It's the same thing as this right here. So if you ask somebody what that is, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say it's a box. But it's not. Because they're not completed, thus it's not a square, it's not a box, right? It's just 4 lines that are there. That's all that is. But our brain finishes these kinds of things. So when you're talking about literacy with students, this is one of the biggest things that they will struggle with, is the fact that their brain is going to apply to whatever they are thinking about, whatever it is that they have prior knowledge with. And so they will try to make sense of what it is, even if it's not what it's supposed to be. And that's what we do as human beings, is we think about that in terms of what we know and try to apply it to what's going on, okay? So I'm giving you 4 words here. And you're going to need to use your device here. And I'm going to give you to socrative.com. And I'll put all that information up here in just a second, okay? I want you to think about these 4 words. And now I want you to think about these 4 words in terms of which word does not belong. Which word out of those 4 does not belong? Anybody have a good idea? Hammer, bird, run, sand. All right. So go to socrative.com. And you're going to do the student login if you've never done Socrative. You can do this on your phone, you can do it on your computer, you can do it on a tablet, doesn't matter. All of those devices work. Your room number is MEKS1. And I want you to put down the word that you think doesn't belong. You want me to put the words back up? Okay. Is everybody logged in? Okay. Those are the 4 words. Anybody need the code? EKS 1. Hammer, bird, run, sand. Which word doesn't belong? Oh, that's all of you. All right. So this is the greatest part about Socrative. You can, this is kind of a little bit like Kahoot, a little bit like Clickers if you've ever seen that. It'll give you those results right away. So we have hammer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Who wants to volunteer and answer as to why you put hammer? Go ahead.
I just picked it because it like didn't look like it was longer and all
Good. So you went visually just based upon the context of the word itself? Yeah. All right. How about anybody else? Go ahead.
Well, I put like just like so like running, what was it? What were the real words? Was like
Hammer, run, sand, and bird.
Yeah. Like running on the beach or something like with like birds flying around and stuff like that.
So you created a whole narrative of those 3 words that fit together. Running on the beach with the birds flying around and then yeah, that's interesting. Very cool. All right, who put bird?
I did.
How come?
Because I was thinking of like construction and like hammer and sand are like, you know, and then I was like, well, maybe run is something to do with construction, but I'm not sure. But bird obviously isn't, so I just went with that.
Very cool. Do y'all see how she came to that? She again made sense of what those words meant. You make concrete out of sand. You have hammers being done with that. All right. Anybody else want to share their answer and why? Not tangible in what way? Oh, very cool. I like that. Good idea. Anybody else? All right, this activity is actually a really good activity for a literacy-based classroom because now you've got an idea of where your students are coming from. So if we were doing some sort of an assignment or some sort of a lesson on just about anything, I've given them 4 words. Those 4 words didn't necessarily have anything to do with each other. But now I get an idea of where the students themselves are coming from. I know she's thinking about construction kind of thing. She's thinking about tangibility. He's drawing a picture in his head of what's going on. I now know where those students are and what kind of a connection that they make with those 4 words that are together. Now you can take any 4 words. The nice part about this particular assignment is it doesn't take very long. You can then get your students together. You can have them choose individually, then get them together and have them discuss it with each other. You can also do the reverse side of this. Pick the one word that belongs. And that one takes them to a different level itself because now they have to think about in terms of what the other 3 have in common. It's just a reverse way of looking at it. This gets them thinking, gets them to a different level. I've seen math teachers do this and they'll put up like the plus sign, the minus sign, the division sign, and the, what's the other sign? Help me out here, math people. There you go, the multiplication sign, right? And then they will ask them which one doesn't belong. And now your students are starting to think in terms of what they all have in common and how they work together. This particular assignment gets them to a different level of literacy. And you as an educator can right away take that idea as a pre-assessment. Now you know where you can go from there. I kind of know what she's thinking, kind of know what she's thinking, kind of know what he's thinking. I kind of can get an idea of where their strengths are as well. This right here can be done with multiple words as well. So you have, you know, five-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, you can give them 2 words. You have middle school, you can give them 4 words. High school, you can give them up to 6 to 8 words. Have them put them together in terms of what doesn't belong, how do those connections exist. When you use Socrative, and we'll have you use Socrative on the other side of this. I'm going to have you guys create some Socratives this semester as well. When you use this, I can now finish this, and I can get a report for this. And I can either have it emailed to me or download it, or I can have it sent to the cloud right away. It's a very simple way. It's very quick. It's very simple in terms of setting it up. And the data that you get from this is actually quite valuable. This right here can also be given to your administration as proof that you are doing those assessments. You are doing that measurement of stuff that's going on in your classroom. You can play around with Socrative as well. I do this for a couple of different reasons. One, I love the data. I love to see what you guys are thinking in terms of these questions. But 2, it also gives you a really quick, as an instructor in the high school when I did this, I never had to take roll. If the kids came right in and did a Socrative, I never had to figure out who was there and who wasn't there. I'm also terrible at taking roll, especially in my K-12 classrooms. I'm not that person who's going to stand up there and go, is Timmy here? Is Susie here? I would count them if I have the right number of students. I was usually okay. But this right here, I could never forget to do it. So that's 2, 3, 4 reasons why I use this particular program. Okay? Thoughts? All right. So let's talk about what we're going to do in here, and then we're going to get to some of what's going on. So usually I want to break this class down into a few different avenues of thought. I want to start with some pedagogy. You have to go to that base. That's the foundation of all education. Those reasons why we do the things that they do. Now, what you're going to find as you go through all of these education courses is that the pedagogy is usually based on some really old, dead white guys. But it's usually still pretty sound research, even today. Now, we want you guys to go out and do that new research so that your future generations can benefit from that, because we don't have the same kids today as we did when John Dewey was around, right? But that pedagogy is really still standard. It's really still sound in its practice. Then I want you to practice a little bit. I want you to do a few things with what's going on in the classroom, with those ideas that are going on. And then we will tie it all together. We'll do the synthesis part of that. Now, a lot of this practice, we'll do things in here, but we're also going to have you go out and do things. Some of you are out in the field. It'll be fun for you to practice that stuff out there. Some of you are just going to be in collaborative groups doing those kinds of things. But this is really kind of the way I want to structure the class as they go along, okay? Now, this statistic all by itself, prisons use 3rd and 4th grade reading level scores to determine the number of beds or rooms they will need in the prisons for the years to come. And I want you to let that sink in for a minute. So South Dakota, we have what, couple, 2, 3 prison type places out in Pierre, down in Springfield, down in Sioux Falls, right? So the state of South Dakota, if you take this standard and apply it to South Dakota, they take those students who are in 3rd and 4th grade now, who are not at or are well below their reading level scores in 3rd and 4th grade to determine the number of adults that will be imprisoned when they are adults. And that's how they determine how many beds they are going to need. What do you think about that? Thoughts? Good idea? Just good strategy? What do you think? Good. So you're looking at it from the opposite side of that, in the fact that the data might be inaccurate on the other side. Like, could be home life, could be poverty, could be a lot of different things. Good. What else?
Things that can change by the time you reach.
What can change? What can change?
Like in third grade, like if you have a parent pass away or you're going through like the foster care system, by the time you're 20, you probably accepted that my parent passed away, or you've accepted, or like you've been adopted.
Right,
and,
right.
Like, or like the parents that have gotten cancer, and by the time that like they're like 15 now, and they're like some of the smartest little humans I've ever met. And vice versa, like you can be super smart. Like I know I had super great reading and math scores when I was in elementary school, and I failed math at college more times than others. So
I feel for you.
It doesn't really prove. Like I mean, obviously there's some proof behind it. Otherwise, they wouldn't use the statistic. But there's a lot of room for error.
Lots of room for error in this. Absolutely. What else do you think about this? Go ahead.
I'd be interested to know like how accurate it is, or how long they've been doing that, and if it does actually.
So your curiosity goes to the actual data itself. You want to research that data to find out whether or not the data is accurate.
Maybe. Or so I'm just like, I think that if it does work, that's kind of
Where a lot of people go, that's really sad that we might look at 3rd and 4th graders and their reading levels to determine whether or not they are there. What else can you find out about this statement in and of itself? What do you know about 3rd and 4th graders and low reading level scores? What do you know about that? Who's usually the better readers in 3rd and 4th grade? Yeah, absolutely. Poverty is definitely tied to reading level scores. And part of that is because when I was growing up, I had, and my parents were not rich by any means, don't get me started on that. But we had books available to us. We had those things that were available to us. When you go to incredibly high poverty places, there isn't a lot of money in the homes to have books. They're just trying to put food on the table. They're trying to just exist day to day. They're not worried about whether or not the kids have the latest underpant book, right? So there is a definitive correlation between poverty and reading scores. Which leads you to the point then there that when they are adults, you have high poverty people. High poverty people in the United States are typically minorities, right? So then we make that connection immediately to that minorities are in prison, minorities are lower level scorers in school, minorities then are not as good academically, right? All of those things can be drawn from that particular statement. And you guys are right on track right there. Let's analyze that. Let's figure out whether or not the statement itself is actually true. And as educators, especially literacy educators, those are the things that you need to start doing. You need to start looking at these kinds of things and doing exactly what you just did here. The same thing can be done for your students in the classroom. That's a very good literacy type place to go with them. Have them question the material that's up in front of them. Don't just have them accept it. And you all have been in classes where if an instructor would put this up on the board, and it's true, and it's false, and there are things that might question with it. You've all had instructors who, if you questioned it, they would say, nope, this is what you're believing. This is what you need to do. You're going to regurgitate it. You're not going to question it. You're just going to go with it. As literacy instructors in the classroom, your goal is to have those students look at this and dissect it, take it apart, look at it step by step, have them bring in their party, their background to this, have them start questioning what it is that's out there. Now, with this particular thing right here, this is often cited. This is often cited in literary journals. It's been peer reviewed, and to be honest with you, it's not 100% accurate. There are a multitude of things that enter into this. So when you think about this, there is a greater likelihood, right, that those people who are not reading at their grade level at 3rd and 4th grade are 4 times less likely to graduate high school on time. 6 times less likely for students from low-income families. If you take all of that, and then a 2009 study that was done by researchers at Northeastern University, that high school dropouts were more likely to end up in prison or be incarcerated at some time when they were adults. Those are all things then that lead to this very powerful, emotional statement. But this statement in and of itself, all by itself, isn't accurate, right? Your students oftentimes will read things like this and they won't question it. They just simply take it. You guys are living in a social media world. Are you kidding me? Everything on social media is right? It's all correct. It's accurate. Our students today, and your job as literacy instructors, whether it's reading, whether it's watching them do something physical, whether it's having them research on their own, they should begin to question it and dissect those pieces of information as opposed to just taking it for what it is. Now, here's part of where a lot of educators go with that. Well, yeah, right, you're the teacher. Just give them this. Then they know. But what happens if we just simply feed them the information and say, this is the right information? Then what do they do when they're on their own? Think about that. What do they do on their own if the only thing we ever do as instructors to make them more literate is give them the information that they need to know? Yeah, absolutely. All of you got up this morning. Some of you might have had to shovel. Some of you had to make a million decisions just to decide whether or not you were going to drive across town or you were going to find a place to park. This morning when I parked, I made sure I left a lot of room behind me because somebody parked right behind me. I left a lot of room. So I had to make the decision, am I going to park normally or am I going to give myself extra room so that when we have another inch while we're in here, I can still back up a little bit. If my car doesn't want to get out, I have some wiggle room, right? Those are decisions that I had to make. We have to, as literacy instructors in the classroom, we have to get our students to start thinking about those kinds of things, not to just have them accept everything that we say and take everything that's said to them about your content area as accurate information. When I was growing up, Christopher Columbus, he was the man. Everybody loved him. Somewhere, some people along the way started to question that research. And now we have a very different teaching guideline for Christopher Columbus in the classroom. Without that curiosity being developed in your students, without that literacy being developed in your students, then we are stuck in the Middle Ages. We're stuck in that time frame where they aren't going to go anywhere beyond what we already know, right? Now, this one right here, they do use the 3rd and 4th grade reading scores to predict the number of beds, but it's been debunked. They use a lot of different material that's going along. 3rd and 4th grade is that area, especially when it comes to literacy, especially when it comes to reading and writing. 3rd and 4th grade is that boundary line. Anybody know what happens in 3rd grade anybody know what happens in 4th grade that doesn't happen in 3rd grade? Oh, good call. A little bit bigger. Go ahead. Oh, wouldn't that be awesome? In 4th grade now? God, I remember that in like 8th grade. Boys and girls were separated, different rooms. How would the boys ever know about anything? Yeah.
Already have beards.
Exactly. Fabulous. Yes. Our state and our national departments of education do something to our 4th graders that we don't do to our 3rd graders. Testing. Testing actually will start at about 3rd grade, but it's a baseline score, so there really isn't anything to compare those kids to. 4th grade, now we start comparing those test scores to the year before. Look, you haven't done anything more. Oh, look, your class isn't as good as the road down the school down the road. You aren't testing where you need to be. All of a sudden, that high stakes testing comes into play 3rd, 4th grade. And all of a sudden, those things that we have our students do or that our students do for the love of doing it now become much more critical. And we as teachers, we as community members, we as newspapers, we now start saying, you have to do this better. You can't just do it for the fun of it anymore. Now you have to do it better because we have to be compared to 1,000,010 other things in our world. That is really critical to what happens in school. If you really think about it, when you're in kindergarten, it's all play. It's high stakes play. You're learning things, right? You're learning how to read. You're learning how to put blocks together in a more concise way. You're learning how to write your name so it's not, uphill and gets bigger as it goes along. You're learning all of those things. But 90% of our day in kindergarten is still play. Our kids are learning through play. And slowly through the educational system, the understanding of all of our content areas no longer is about the enjoyment of it. It's about doing it right. It's about doing it because you're going to have to go to college one day. It's about how come you're not doing it as well as they are. I don't get it, Mom. Yeah, try harder. Have you ever talked to a student who has been told their entire life to try harder? And they're already up until 10 o'clock doing their homework, they're listening in class, they're taking all the notes, they're still not getting that grade. Try harder. Just try harder. Our students can't try harder if they're already trying as hard as they can. At that point in time, we need to look at our students and we need to figure out, we need to say, what can I do for you as that student, as an individual? What are you not understanding? Let's work with that. That's that increasing that literacy for that particular student. My niece he's in 2nd grade. He's struggling with math. He just doesn't get it. And it's not that he doesn't get it. It's that he doesn't want to sit there for the 40 minutes that this 2nd grade teacher lectures to them on the board and then gives them, 20, 25 problems to do that night. He's a farm kid. He wants to go home and he wants to go out and feed his animals. He wants to play football with his brothers in the yard. He doesn't want to sit there for that 40 minutes to do that. It's not that he doesn't get the math, it's that he doesn't want to be doing it. In 2nd grade, they're already starting to feel that pressure of being something other than a kid, being a student of learning as opposed to being a student. And that's the key. You have to integrate in your students that desire to learn your content, to get to that understanding, to that literate level of that, as opposed to you just need to know this for the test. The biggest question you guys will hear as teachers is, why are we doing this? When am I ever going to use this? And your answer can never be because you're going to take a test over this. Because now you're taking that love of your content and you are narrowing it back down to that thing we do at about 3rd and 4th grade level. Now it's academics. Now I have to produce that information just to produce the information. I don't need to understand it. I just need to know it for the test. I just need to know what's going on there. Okay? Now, there's a difference here in your students between content and process. The content is what they're doing. That is, the Civil War, it's fractions, it's creating a household budget, all of those things that your content area really, really strives on. The process is how they get it done. And this is going to be one of the biggest challenges that I'm going to throw at you this semester, is to figure out how your students are doing that material in order to understand it. A lot of times for some of you, you've had nothing up to this point in time except, and go back to your K-12 experience, where you might have listened to a teacher and you might have processed slower than everybody else, but you're still doing the same work at the same speed. Are you all producing the same product at the end? Are you still doing it in that manner? All of our students, and if you think about this, I just look around you. Just look around you. Everybody just, don't stop doing what you're doing, but look around you in your classroom. Some of you aren't taking notes. Some of you are diligently taking notes, writing them out. Some of you have your computers out, maybe looking at the stuff already. Every single one of you in here does things in a very different way. My husband would be the person who's just listening. If he writes stuff and he listens at the same time, he's going to lose some of it. I'm going to be the person who has the computer out, and I'm probably double checking everything that I say. Or I'm looking at the material that's, already been posted and stuff like that. That's me, because I was that visual, I want to read material kind of thing. Some of you are just like, thinking about, what you're going to have for dinner and going to look at it later, right? Every single one of your students are going to be that same way. Now, I want you to think back, K-12, right? I want you to think back to how many times were you ever told, get out your notebook and write this down? And what if that student didn't need to? What if they could remember it and they wanted to think about it and then write their own notes later? We have exceptional students in the classroom, and exceptional students are our educational term now for special needs students. Those students who have some sort of a disability. Reading, writing, could be a lot of different things. So our exceptional students, we oftentimes will give them all of the notes. We'll give them the PowerPoint, we'll give them the notes that are going on with the teacher, we'll give them everything right ahead of time.
That's usually part of their IEP, that individual education plan that every special needs student has. And then we won't for those students who aren't on an IEP. So with people who are with you right now, I want you really quickly, I want you to have that discussion. Why are we giving to some students all of the material so they can process it, and to those other students we're not giving the material to them? What do you think about that? Talk amongst yourselves.
I mean, it just doesn't make sense where it's not.
Look at it like those students that are not as exceptional students. Why?
I was really busy with they're like, I don't have time to print all these notes off for every single 30 minutes in the classroom. I don't have time to like individually help them all at the same time. That may be like the excuse. Yeah, it doesn't happen. It's not for effort. It is. Right. It's not for exactly. Yeah. So that's why your content, your course, whatever. Yeah. It's a kid has to test. You're fine. Yeah, but yeah. Oh, I think so. My school wasn't just really good school where I'm from, but all the teachers are awful. We're all tenured. It's like, you know, they're doing well like the first year, and now they're just like, it's just PowerPoint. Yep. Good luck.
It's a crazy philosophy that we, and what you'll find across the United States is that we still hold to do those traditional things with a whole bunch of high regard. We still, for some reason, think that if a student can copy down everything that we have in PowerPoint, that somehow they're going to be more successful when you go to college. Is there something about taking notes that they need to learn? Absolutely, right? How many of you have ever sat in a classroom where the only thing you did was copy down everything that was on PowerPoint? And then as teachers, what we're doing along the way is we're talking about all this narrative stuff that goes with it. History classes were great for that. They would give you all these facts on a PowerPoint. We diligently write them all down. And we had, of course, slower writers than others, but they're diligently writing it. I've got everything down in that PowerPoint. And then our history instructors would be talking about the really cool things that are going on in history. They'd be talking about those narratives about, you know, why this general did this and this guy who did this. And they talk about those micro histories that go along behind it. But the student isn't listening or processing any of that in relationship to all those facts. They're diligently writing down all of that information so that they can study those facts for the test that they're going to have. When in reality, the greatest part of the history is when that instructor was talking about the narratives that go along with it. Those are the things that really intrigue that student to really want to get to that deeper level of that content area. And so with our exceptional students, what we'll do is we'll give them all of the notes so they can follow along, they can add material to it, they can process it ahead of time. For the other students, we keep it a secret, and then they have to write them down. And they lose that processing time. They lose the time between the writing, the listening, and the thinking about what's going on. And what we find is that our students aren't getting the information because in the classroom, they're processing the writing part of it. They're not processing the thinking part of it. And that's the greatest part of it. And I heard you guys were talking about time. Yeah, absolutely. One teacher personalizing information for 30 students, that can take a lot of time, right? But here's the key to that. How many of you know of a school district anymore that doesn't have either a one-to-one program or carts in their classroom where those students all have that information? So our world has changed in regards to that. We can post that information for them to get in a heartbeat. It literally takes a push of a button on a computer to get every single student your notes in the class. Why are we still holding hostage that information for the student? Are we Are we going to keep something, you know, are there going to be questions that we're going to ask them on the test? Probably, right? Are there going to be things that we are pondering in our notes that we don't want them to see? Maybe. But it's so easy now to wipe out those things. We can give them all the information that we have and let them start processing as we're going along in class rather than worrying about writing everything down. It's funny to listen. A lot of your education instructors here on campus, and there aren't a ton of us, right? A lot of the education instructors on campus, some of them, especially in the early childhood section, their students are sitting in class and they are not taking notes. And some of the older instructors who are of that old ilk, where you need to write down everything that's being said, you need to write down everything that we're talking about because I'm saying it out loud, you need to write it down so that you can think about it later, right? But their students, especially ECE, they're just listening. Now I want you to think about the world that you live in and your generation and the generation that's coming up. What kind of a world are they living in? Everything is visual and everything is oral. They're not the great, I mean, and reading is at its greatest level that it has been in a really, really long time. But when you guys sit down in front of your computer and you're relaxing and you're resting, you're 2 hours later down the road either watching pimples being popped on YouTube or cats or dogs or, you know, all those really fun things. Everything you and this younger generation are getting today is very orally based. It's not writing down everything that's being said, it's listening. The generation of students coming up have a much greater ability to listen and remember and process than my generation ever did. My generation, I mean, if we watched TV, you had a choice of 3 channels, and if the president was on, you didn't have TV, right? We didn't have that visual input that our students today have. If you ever go to a ball game, or you're walking down High B and you've got a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old in the cart, chances are they've got a device in front of them that they are either playing a game or they're watching a movie. Your SUVs, you go on a big trip. I read a book when we went on big trips. Today, those kids are watching the screen in front of them and watching a movie. So you're teaching a generation that has a very different input ability than my generation had. And that's the idea. So if we continue to teach them the way I was taught and discount the fact that they can listen and process, then we're doing them a disservice. They'll never get to that level that we want them to get to, right? And I want you to think about that. How are your students making meaning through literacy? How are your students going to be able to take your content in whatever means you want to give your content to them or that they need to, and how are they going to make meaning of that? When I first started teaching English, I was really against audiobooks. Boy, those kids need to read the novels. They need to be able to do that when they go to college. They're going to have to read those big giant textbooks. They're going to have to be able to understand it. You cannot listen to that story. Do you know how wrong I was? And here's part of the reason. My entire educational career, and God bless SDSU, it was the greatest educational experience in the state, right? In the nation, as far as I'm concerned. Never once did any of my educational instructors remind me that when those students that I had freshmen through seniors, 7th grade through seniors, how did they first learn to enjoy the written word? They were sitting on somebody's lap, having it read to them. Yet when I had them in the classroom, the first thing I did was take away that connection. You can't have somebody read this to you. You can't be comfortable sitting in a chair having somebody read this to you on a tape or a CD at that time. No, you have to read this yourself. And I had taken away that comfort to them. Huge mistake. Changed my world when that was pointed out to me. Changed my entirety. So what if they're having it read to them? Big deal. They're getting the story. Do they still have to know how to read? Absolutely. But we need to get them to where they're going to think about their own literacy. They're going to think about their own ideas as it exists. Then it gets them to that particular area. It's part of the reason that so many of our VOTEC schools are growing by leaps and bounds. Our students want to be able to connect to those things that they know they can feel really, really good about. It's why PE is so fun. It's why ag classes are so fun.
It's why FACS classes are so fun, because they're doing those things that they can touch. They can make connections to right away. They're not just sitting there getting that information told to them, okay? Now, the other thing we needed to get to this week was I asked you to look at your competency plan. Did you all get an opportunity to look at this? No. Okay. Did anybody, and Miranda will catch you up here, did anybody have any questions over this? Does it become more clear after you've looked at it a little bit? Okay, so I want you to think about this in terms of you being a teacher. This is really what you will be doing in the classroom, okay? So these are the 4 skills that you're going to be showing me you know how to do. These are the 4 skills that instructors, educators need to know how to do. These are the things that are going to take you into the future of your career. You need to know how to research and question. You need to know how to design, and for most of you right now, you're probably thinking lesson plans, activities, those kinds of things. Experience, you're going to have to be involved in those experiences with your students, going out to field trips, going to museums, those kinds of things. And you're going to have to be able to collaborate with an awful lot of people, right? Your colleagues mostly in the schools, but even that, you're no longer bound by those schools. If you are on Twitter, I did a couple of, from 352, a couple of students did join Twitter. They were involved in the chats last Wednesday night. It was amazing to watch these college kids talking to like incredibly high power educational people in the world, people who are well respected in the educational world, and they were chatting with them and these people were chatting back with them. That's a type of collaboration. You're going to have to be able to do that as an instructor. So these are the 4 skills that I really want you to be able to demonstrate that you can do, okay? The assignment is how you're going to demonstrate that to me. How are you going to show me that you can research? How are you going to show me that you can collaborate with people? How are you going to show me that you can design something, right? Now, in the syllabus, remember, I did give you a few options, you know, like design, create a lesson plan, right? Experience, some of you are out in the field. How are you going to use that experience to do something? Could be a reflection, could be a paper, could be a presentation, could be a poster, could be a ton of different things, right? And the research, what are you going to research? How are you going to research it? What does your research product look like? Is it a poster for a presentation? Is it a research paper? Is it a speech that you're giving at one of your professional organizations? Again, a ton of different things that you can do there, right? The collaboration can be with people in here, can be with people outside of here. Some of you are involved in, I know Phi Ed is huge. You guys are a tight-knit group. So is Ag. You guys collaborate like nobody's business already, right? Some of our other content areas, you just kind of go to classes together, you know each other, but there's not a lot of collaboration going on yet. So you can work with people in here, you can work with people outside of here, all right? Now, this assignment, you get to choose. I don't care what you do. I don't care what your demonstration of learning is to demonstrate that you can do each of those 4 skills. The due date, I'm going to hold you to, but again, life gets in the way, right? And so if you have to change your due date after you turn your competency plan in, just shoot me an email. Tell me what's going on. Tell me why you need to change your due date. And the key there is don't ask me when can I turn it in. You suggest that date, right? That then shows that you're progressing to that next level. You're taking your own advocacy, your own education there. Now, here's the key to this, and this is the last part of anything that a teacher would do, is you're now going to align it to those standards, those competencies. So if you are looking at the syllabus, I bring this up here. So if you're looking at the syllabus, you have the list of competencies in there, and they are right here, right? Now, keep in mind, you have 7 different competencies that you need to align these things to, okay? And they're all phrased in the term of questions, right? So once you go through here, and this would be the last thing that you do, right? So you're going to, this is what I want to do for a research product. This is what I want to do for a design product. This is what I want to do for an experience product. This is what I want to do for a collaboration product. One product, okay? I had somebody last semester who, God bless her, when I looked at her thing, she had done, for each standard, she had done one of these. So she literally had 7 times 4. She had 28 products she was going to work on. And she was like, this is a lot of work, Mary. I was like, yes, you're doing a lot of work because that's way too much. I don't want you to do all of that, right? 1 product for each of those. Now, here's the key. Now you're going to go to that syllabus and you're going to align those standards to where they fit. So for example, your research, let's pretend you're going to do a research paper. You are going to study the effects of literacy in your content area, right? That's your research product that you want to do. It's due let's do March 13th, right? Now I want you to go through and I want you to look at these competencies and I want you to figure out which competencies fit that product. Now you're doing it backwards alignment. Rather than starting with the competency, you're now going to align that competency after the fact. Once you start learning how to do that, what you're going to figure out is you're going to hit these competencies more than once. And that's okay. So when you're looking at this, you might have 6 competencies here that you've met. Those same 6 competencies you might meet here. You might only have 2 that are here, but those same 2 might be here as well. So I want you to look at which competencies are being met based upon the product you're going to give me to demonstrate the skill that I'm looking for. Does that make sense?
Do we have to cover all of them still?
You have to do all 7 competencies, right? No. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Okay, so I would keep a couple of things in mind. I have a lot of people, and it's just the way their brain works is they would make all 4 of these due the same week. But those same people were also the procrastinators. So now that same week, they're trying to do all 4 of these things. And because of that type of brain, they were also putting it at the last week, which is fine. I don't care if they do that, but I want you to think really, truly about your schedule. I want you to really, truly think about what it is that you're going to succeed at doing rather than put yourself under a stress umbrella of doing, right? If you are that type of person who works so much better, it's the last Monday of this semester, you have 4 days of classes left, and you are doing all of your coursework for everybody all that week, and you're just not going to sleep, and you're going to live at Cottonwood drinking coffee, and that's the way your body and mind, etc. works. Knock yourself out, right? I don't think that's healthy for anybody, right? But you really do have the option here of the due date. But look at your schedule, figure out what you want to do and when you want it to be done, okay? The other thing I will mention to everybody, when you turn these in, there's going to be a drop box for each one. So your research product will go here. Your design product will go here. Your experience and your collaboration will go there, okay? So I want you to think about that, all right? And put those in their appropriate spots. Now, I'm not a grader. Now, that's not an accurate statement. I'll grade everything you give me, don't get me wrong, but I'm gonna give you feedback first. So if you're that type of student who looks to D2L for the grade, don't do that. Look for the feedback. Look for the feedback first. Once we've talked about stuff, once that feedback is there, then I'll start awarding grades to those things, okay? And you're going to have a great big deal to say about what the grades are on this, because that's where those check-in meetings come in, where we're going to talk about those things. And every single one of these has a rubric. So when you put it in, you fill out that rubric. Now, this rubric you're going to see too, boy, there's nothing there, right? This is your first opportunity to really tell me your argument about how you've met this. Nothing busted my gut more than going through college and turning something in, because I'm that person who, when I do something or I say something, I just assume everybody in the world knows what I'm thinking. And then I turn it in and the instructor would look at it and they'd say, yeah, I have no idea what you're doing here. This is really your first opportunity to say, this is how I see that I've met this. This is how I see I have extended beyond. That's your first opportunity, okay? Questions? Thoughts? All right, so let's do this before the 24th. Let's have that up. And keep in mind, first time you've done something like this for me, if I see something, I'll shoot you back an email saying, yeah, let's work on this. What do you think about this? All right, I'll give you that feedback for that. All right, next Friday morning, you can stay home. We're going to do a flipped class. I'm at a conference on Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So Friday morning, you will have available to you a flipped lesson. And a flipped lesson is where you watch the video, and then the next week in class, we'll do the activities for that particular lesson. The other thing you need to keep in mind this week is you'll have a flip grid and some readings. Again, look to next week's date for that, okay? Questions? Thoughts? What are you going to do if you do? Please do. Fabulous. You guys have a great week.